And when we're talking about monitoring, what do we actually mean here? What are we actually doing and saying in the classroom to sort of monitor learning?
I'll be very transparent. I'll tell the class that I'm going to, I'll say it's art, that I'm going to look at this group's work in this lesson and talk about how far they're achieving the learning outcome. And I might make a comment, for example, your still life sketch is really well done, and then what about trying to sketch it from another angle? So giving them something more to build on.
I like to keep the list of the learning objectives, and I keep that list at hand all the time, so that throughout the lesson and at the end of the lesson I can give mental checks to all of the learning objectives. And sometimes I design specific activities or a certain rubric. It pretty much depends on the content, but it's something that I think that we should also have at hand.
Teaching and learning is going on in steps, and there are steps which you go through, and at the end of a particular unit or so, I think it's a good idea to stop, breathe deeply, take stock, look back, look forward, and decide which the next steps could be. As to monitoring your students' progress, I think you should never underestimate the power of justified praise. I think the power of praise is something extremely important, and it helps to motivate, to keep students motivated. It helps to keep them on board.
So if you were in a classroom and you see that a group is struggling, what kind of things would you say to that group to try and help them to learn what you intended?
Always praise first. We'll say what's done well, even if it's just that they worked together well, they used English well. But then you need to give the suggestion or an alternative of how they can move forward. Yeah. You might have to spend a bit more time with that group. But in one lesson, as I say, if you have a lot of learners in the class, you can't always do that, which is why I do the monitoring plan, to make sure I give groups equal attention. Okay. I think it's also important, from my own experience, we tend to spend a lot of time with the learners who are perhaps less able, and we extend the more able learners, but I think the learners who are in the middle also deserve as much attention as everyone else. So I try to be as democratic as possible.
Yeah, very true.
And what kind of things do you actually say to make sure that the learning is happening? So do you talk about kind of the methods they use, or do you talk about how they're doing their group work, or?
I keep focusing back on the learning objectives and asking them how much they think they have learned, or what they've not understood, or how we can help them. There's a joint responsibility, I think, for the teacher. You don't want to spoon feed them all the time. But the learning objective is key. And sometimes you'll have a child or a learner who is really good at the maths, but not good at the English. Yes. Or you'll have someone who's very good at English, but doesn't really understand the science. So there's quite complexity in teaching subjects in another language compared with the native language.